Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 653. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so.
What's going on, Kyle?
Not much, James. Wow, you jumped right in there.
I did.
Nice. Everyone wants to know, how did you survive Hurricane Milton?
Oh, how did I? Very
Yes.
easily.
Very easily. Okay.
I literally sat at home and I was supposed to be working, but instead I watched movies all night.
So you didn't even lose power then?
Never lost power.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I went to bed at like 3 in the morning because like the worst of it was supposed to be 2 a.m. And by 3 I was like, this isn't going to be so bad.
Right.
And so woke up the next morning. All the clocks were unblinking. That told me that the power never went out.
Yep.
And I was like, great. Hopefully it'll hold through the day, because sometimes it takes like a little bit of time for the grid to like have issues. Like sometimes after the storm, your power goes out. And that's when you know you're in trouble, because that means like it's going to be days before it comes back.
Well, I can imagine like maybe overnight or during the actual storm, there's not a lot of power load. And the next day, that's when people are turning their lights on, and, you know, that's when the grid might get overloaded.
I don't know what I think it's like. From what I understand, it's that the different transformers will go down.
Okay.
And then over the course of the end of the storm into like the next day, it's trying to redistribute power around the transformers that went down. And so if it was a particularly bad storm, then those transformers become overloaded, and then they're like, it's a cascade effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but that didn't happen this time, and it was fine. I watched the movie we're going to talk about today.
Oh, perfect. At 2 a.m. during a hurricane.
I think this one was a little earlier that night, but
Okay.
it was that night. It was my
Okay.
Milton movie for sure. It was one of the Milton movies.
And people probably notice Zach is not here, but he's okay too. His house fared fine. His family fared fine. He just had other conflicts this weekend. So
Absolutely. Second week in a row, Zach hasn't been here, which is rare unless he's like traveling internationally. So
right, in this case, he's just traveling nationally.
yeah, we miss him.
Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach back. Bring Zach.
I think we can all
Preach.
agree, right? We want to bring Zach back, but he's got something to take care of, and it's all good. I'm excited to talk to you about this movie, Kyle. This is my suggestion.
Yeah.
The movie Blink Twice. Just because it's one of those movies that I think you could talk about from several different angles. We'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely things to talk about. We didn't
Sure.
discuss this before the podcast. Are we going to do a spoiler section?
I think we should.
Okay.
Don't you?
I think there's a lot to talk about in this movie that is spoilerable. So I don't want to
Right.
ruin it for people.
And I think people who have seen it, or people who might want to see it after our discussion, would want to also hear talk about the ending.
Yep.
And probably the middle to the end.
Yeah.
It goes places for sure. Before we jump into all that, I need to remind the listeners that there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out. Search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. Find us there, subscribe, and watch while you listen. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio, amongst other Cinereelist swag. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review. 5 stars only. That one's free and easy to do if you have an iPhone. You could also leave us a listener email, or send us an email rather. Hey guys at cinereelist.com. What were you going to say?
Keep going.
All right. Comment, question, list suggestion, movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things you can send us via listener email. Links to do all of those things are in the description of this episode. You ready to talk Blink Twice?
I'm blinking twice
Oh,
to say
you are.
yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Blink Twice is on premium VOD right now. We're going to get into it right after this clip.
How good does that smell? This is Syria. Actually only grows here. We got a beautiful little herb garden over here. Got our chickens.
You know, it's not what I thought it was gonna be.
What do you mean?
The legendary parties of Slater King with drugs and debauchery.
We still do drugs. We just do them with intention. And we still have fun. It's just a little different now.
That was Blink Twice, a 2024 American psychological thriller directed by Zoë Kravitz in her directorial debut. Blink Twice stars Naomi Aki, Channing Tatum, Christian Slater, Simon Rex, Adria Arjona, Kyle MacLachlan, Haley Joel Osment, Gina Davis, and Aaliyah Shawkat. Pretty much only them, I would say. The official plot synopsis for Blink Twice is: when tech billionaire Slater King meets cocktail waitress Frida at his fundraising gala, he invites her to join him and his friends on a dream vacation on his private island. As strange things start to happen, Frida questions her reality. Kyle, what did you think of Blink Twice? Spoiler free, of course.
Spoiler free, yes. So I knew nothing about this movie going in. Okay. I knew that it was Zoë Kravitz debut directorial film. But I guess I didn't hear a ton about it, so it kind of came and went. So when you suggested it, you said, "Oh, hey, you should go into this blind." And I was like, "Okay." And then I asked my wife, Megan, "Hey, I'm watching this movie with James tonight called Blink Twice. I know nothing about it except it's got Channing Tatum in it. Do you want to watch it? I think it's a thriller." She goes, "Yeah, sure. I like Channing Tatum." And
this is quite a Channing Tatum movie, I would
quite
say.
a Channing Tatum movie, yes. Right away, this movie has a trigger warning, which is, at first I felt a little odd because, like, you don't see movies with trigger warnings in front of them. Sure. And you know, even though I consider myself to be fairly progressive, this little voice in the back of my head said, like, "Wow, woke are we?" But that's okay. It's okay. Because as the movie went on, I was like, oh yeah, this definitely could be a movie that is traumatizing to people. I understand why you want a little heads up before you watch this movie. And I think at one point I even turned to my wife and said, "Hey, we okay watching this?" She's like, "Yeah, we keep going here." So, because did not really know what the subject matter was about. Sure. So that being said, this is definitely an intense movie, has some intense moments. I did find it, though, a little slow to get going. Okay. I don't know if you felt the same way. Like you said, you have this cocktail waitress who gets invited to an island of a billionaire. And when she gets there, you know, the Christian or Channing Tatum's spending a lot of time with her, giving her all this attention. She really feels special. It's a small group of people. Every night is just like drugs and partying and champagne. And they wake up and do the next thing the next day. And the whole time you kind of know that there's something sinister going on because, like, you know, that's how the movie sort of presented to you. But I would say almost like the first half of this movie just feels like party scene after party scene. And it got a little long for me. Where after a while I was like, okay, I get it. Like, every day's a party. And I could have used a little bit more tension building in that first, like, half of the movie. But then realizations start to happen and things start to build up. And then I think the pacing takes off a lot quicker after that. Sure. So definitely a slow start to it. The other thing that jumped out to me is just the cast in this movie. Because I didn't really know who was in it besides Channing Tatum. And this movie starts at a cocktail party. And I'm like, oh, that's Gina Davis. Oh, that's Kyle MacLachlan. I'm like, was that Haley Joel Osment? What's he doing? You know? Yeah. Just thinking like these were random cameos at this party, but no, like all these people then show up on the island. Yeah. And I would say all those actors were pretty fun.
It was just fun seeing a lot of them again. It's been a while for some of them.
Like Christian Slater, I'm sure he's still acting, but I don't think he's been relevant to me since the 90s.
Sure. I think he had a TV show that ran for a long time, but wasn't like a prestige TV show, so you didn't hear much about it, if that makes sense.
Which, I mean, nothing wrong with being like a working actor. Not everything has to be prestige TV. If you have like a steady gig, like Rob Lowe's doing some CBS 911 show or something.
Sure.
I was like, good for you, Rob Lowe. Like, I'm sure it's an easy show to work on. You wear a fireman's outfit, you say some lines, and you get paid a ton of money. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like Haley Joel Osment, even though he's slightly younger than I am, right away you can recognize that face. Like his face has not changed. But yeah, so it's just really cool to see all these actors who I don't think about very often be in this movie, and definitely. I don't want to say having fun with their roles because this is not a fun movie, but they're definitely playing it up in this movie.
Oh, I thought everybody was having fun, which is a weird thing to say. I agree.
Yes. Like, okay, I should say I think the actors were having fun playing their characters.
I think Gina Davis, Christian Slater, Channing Tatum, Haley Joel Osment.
Yes.
These are all people who have characters in this movie that you've never seen them play, if that makes sense.
I think that's a good way to put it, yeah.
And so that's what they were having fun with, not necessarily the subject matter.
Or, yeah, right.
Where the subject matter lands at.
Deeds of the characters, right. Just more they're playing sort of out of type, I would say.
Right, yeah. And that I found the most interesting and probably one of the high points of the movie for me was just to have a lot of these legacy actors amongst some younger people, and even people that are kind of in the middle, like Aaliyah Shawkat, like in my mind is like, she was really famous in my brain 10 years ago.
Like Arrested Development, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like Arrested Development was like her peak in my brain. And here she is in this movie. And like even Channing Tatum, like, even though I just saw him in Trapped or whatever it's called, Trap, I forget what it was called.
Oh, he's in that movie with Josh Hartnett.
I'm pretty sure that's him. Well, no, it was Josh Hartnett.
That's Josh Hartnett. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting them crossed and confused. I'm getting my mid-aughts heartthrobs confused.
Was Channing Tatum a mid-aught? I mean, I feel like he was a little later than Josh Hartnett.
You think like 2010s, early 2010s?
Like when did the first Magic Mike come out?
That's a good question.
Because I think that's sort of, I mean, he was acting before Magic Mike, but I think that kind of put him on the
Magic
map.
Mike 2012.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, where I would say Hartnett was more like late 90s, 2000s was his decade.
So you think Magic Mike was his breakout?
What was he doing before Magic Mike?
That's a good question.
I mean, he did Haywire, but I don't think he was a known name in Haywire. That was like 2000s.
Haywire. He was
the
Haywire?
Steven Soderbergh Gina Carano movie.
Yeah, I know the movie.
Yeah.
I just don't remember him in Haywire.
Yeah, he's in the movie.
I only remember Gina Carano in that movie.
Right, because you probably didn't know who Channing Tatum really was when you saw Haywire.
Probably. So I remember him from Step Up, the
okay.
dancing movie. I don't know
sure.
I don't know if he broke out in that movie. You're probably right. It was probably Magic Mike-ish time. Oh, he was in G.I. Joe before that.
Okay, so like maybe that was on the cut, but I don't know if G.I. Joe was a breakout role for him.
21 Jump Street was pretty big. Same year as Magic Mike.
Okay,
so I think you're right. Early 2010s was his moment.
Yep,
for sure. I haven't seen. Oh, he was in War of the Worlds. Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
2005. Yeah,
2005. He was the boy in the church.
So there's something fun about watching a movie, and it has a star in it, but at that point they weren't a star, and when you saw the movie they weren't a star, so like it didn't clock in your head that they were in that movie. And then you watch like War of the Worlds, and now you're like, oh, that's Channing Tatum back there, where when you saw in 2005 you did not think about the boy in the church. It was just some character, a random character in the background.
Absolutely. Anyway, how did we get here?
I think we were just talking about seeing these actors who have some I don't know, pedigree, but they've been in the business for a while, and they're kind of playing different roles. And then it also gives a chance for like our star, and then the other woman who was like the survivor woman from the TV show. Like that gave them a chance to sort of be the stars because they were kind of playing it straight, I would say.
Sure.
When everyone else is sort of playing off of expectations of their past characters.
Yeah, and like it was just fun to see Christian Slater, who used to headline his own movies, and Gina Davis, who used to headline her own movies.
Right.
You know what I mean? We just haven't seen them in anything for so long, even if they're putting out stuff. Just not the stuff I'm seeing, evidently. To see them pop up in this and have them not play to type. And it was interesting. Also, I feel like Haley Joel Osment is having a moment right now.
Okay.
At least in my brain.
Sure.
One, because of this movie, actually getting to see him in a movie where he's not just like somebody that it feels like they slotted in because he's Haley Joel Osment. You know what I mean? To kind of like get a cheap pop out of him. It felt like he actually had a little bit to chew on with his character, and it fit him perfectly. Like his look and his mannerisms.
Right, because he kind of plays this party boy. Like we don't really know. Maybe he's an actor. Like we don't really know much about his character whatsoever. But he's definitely like just playing music and wants to party all the time.
He's like this putzy, wealthy guy who's just
Yes.
like that friend in this group of billionaire friends,
Right.
type of thing, or probably millionaire, I would guess, because I think what's his name, the Channing Tatum character, was the only one that was like mega rich.
He's probably the billionaire, and these are his millionaire friends.
Right.
He's the one with the island.
On top of that, he has been popping up on YouTube at different places playing JD Vance in like skits.
Oh, I've seen a couple of those.
And he's really good as JD Vance. And so between him popping up a lot on my feed and then him popping up in this movie, I'm really into Haley Joel Osment lately.
I'm happy to see him in other things. Like for me, he's always been perpetually like 9 years old. Like, you know, he's the Sixth Sense kid.
Sure.
And then I can't think of many movies he's been in since then. So to see him 25 years later almost pop back up is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And I think he did like Pay It Forward or something like that. Or
it's nice to see. Obviously, I clearly don't know Haley Joel Osment personally, but it's nice to see a young kid actor who seems well adjusted enough to accept that like this is their station in Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just have fun with every opportunity given to him, type of thing. And hopefully that's a correct assessment and he's not a real scumbag that we don't know about, but
hopefully not.
All signs point to not so far. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I probably don't want to get too much more into this movie. I don't even know if I talk about the themes of this movie are spoilery or not. So I would just say it's.
What did you think of? This is a movie that has a twist. I think that's fair. It's not really a spoiler to say that.
I would say
there's a twist in it.
Right.
Was the twist predictable to you, or were you not necessarily surprised by it, but were you not clued in advance as far as what was actually happening here?
I would say I did not predict what was happening with what was happening, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Right. So I guess I was not surprised that something was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised by what was happening. And I'll also say I was surprised by the presentation of what was happening. You
mean once they really got into it halfway through?
They really got into it, yeah. And I would say it's unflinching at times.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know Zoë Kravitz personally, but I get the impression that she's pretty outspoken about her beliefs and values.
Mm-hmm. And
those are definitely on screen in this movie. And the camera isn't shying away from some things. It's this not like intense horror or anything like that. But there's definitely
there's a type of horror in it. That's for sure.
Right. Okay. I shouldn't say this isn't gore horror is what I'm trying to say. Right.
Sure.
This is definitely more. Okay. There's some of that
there too. It goes there too.
I would say what I found most upsetting was the psychological presentation.
Absolutely.
Of things being done. And again, there's the camera kind of shows you what's happening.
Right. I also think it's interesting just to think about the idea that Zoe Kravitz, a person that's been famous her entire life. You know what I mean? Like her dad is mega famous. She's kind of, not to be mean, but famous for being the daughter of a famous guy. She's been around people of wealth and power her entire life, and probably has some experiences that other people probably don't want her to ever talk about in public.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I find it interesting that she gets the chance to make a movie, or makes the chance. I don't know how she got this movie, but one way or another, she makes her first movie, and this is what it's about.
It's about the abuse of power.
Right. The abuse of power by a bunch of very wealthy white guys.
Correct. Yes.
And I just think it's worth noting that that's, of all the subject matter she could have made something about, this was on top of mind enough to make it her debut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We really haven't gotten into what you thought about the movie, like in broad strokes.
That's true. Yeah. I've been so short. Yeah. I liked this movie.
Sure.
Yeah. It's I think it is I don't know if powerful is the right story to put it, but it's definitely
it's a statement.
It's a statement, right?
Yeah.
It's a relevant story.
Right.
And I think, overall as a director, I was impressed with Zoe Kravitz. There are some interesting cinematography and camera shots and how she moves the camera. I enjoyed. I think my biggest issue was probably, I think the pacing at the beginning was just a bit slow. And when things, we can talk about this in spoilers too, when characters start having realizations, it didn't quite hit it as hard at first.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say when there's a realization around the Aaliyah Shawkat character, and two characters are talking and they kind of come to something, I feel like that should have been more of a thud.
Okay.
And it quite wasn't. The thud comes later, so maybe that's why. Maybe because there's a second thud that hits harder. But that first one didn't quite hit. It kind of felt like, oh, is this our revelation here?
I don't know what the second thud is, but I can't wait to hear about it.
Well, the second thud is what's going on
versus what happens to the Aaliyah Shawkat character.
Sure. Yes. Without getting too much into it.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, again, maybe that's just me not misinterpreting, looking for something else. But I don't think this is a perfect thriller by any stretch. But I do think it's a good thriller.
Sure. This movie, while I was watching it, reminded me a lot of Promising Young Woman, which takes kind of like this very specific story told from a female perspective that you would assume is told in a very specific, maybe like woke way. You know what I mean? Like kind of just a dissertation on how awful men are type of thing. And instead it does that, but does it in an interesting way, at least for my money. That's probably my biggest takeaway for the movie. I agree that there's probably like a little fat here and there to cut, and I thought maybe the sequences with the maid or the worker on the grounds worker was like a little too vague and a little too like boogeyman-ish to really give you enough to, in retrospect, feel like you could have figured it out yourself type of thing. Like Sixth Sense does a really good job, movie with a twist, of like giving you context clues over the course of the movie. And then by the time that they give you the big reveal, if you rewatch it, it all makes sense. I'm not sure this movie gives you enough to be able to say the filmmaker was fair with me at the beginning. Yes. I just didn't see the signs.
And I think that's sort of what I felt like with the pacing in the beginning was I wasn't feeling, I could tell there's something not right, like with the maid, with other things, but didn't quite feel like things were ramping up of like, oh, that's what's happening here. Oh, that explains that.
Right. And I think a lot of that like slow burn towards in the first half was probably trying to set up the twist, and probably felt like there wasn't much happening, which is why at any opportunity they could, they demonized the groundskeeper. and not demonized, but like made you suspicious of them.
Right.
And so yeah, I agree. There's probably some fat to cut here and there. But
Yeah.
that being said, for like a first film from somebody, I thought it was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I mean, nepotism aside, if this is what she's going to put out as a first film, I'm looking forward to the next one for sure. Even if she pulls an Emerald Fennell and like makes a pretty wacky second movie,
Makes a Saltburn.
Yeah,
I could see Zoe Kravitz making a Saltburn style movie, like especially if she has things to say, which I definitely think she does. She has things to say with this movie.
mm-hmm.
And you're right, which is with her experience being around powerful people her whole life,
Mm-hmm.
being a woman around powerful people her whole life. I'm sure she has lots of things to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I also enjoyed just everybody not playing to type.
Yeah.
For the most part. And Channing Tatum towards the end, I'm sure we'll get into it in spoilers, just really going for it with one particular monologue section.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Right. I've just never seen him do that. And maybe some people would be turned off by that, think it's a little over the top. But I thought it fit the subject matter and what the movie was trying to say pretty well.
Yeah.
And the moment, like, this kind of feels like a movie that probably should have come out like 2020, 2019. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it's coming out like, so far removed from 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Which is when a lot of the issues that this movie brings up came to light in the real world. I'm not saying the movie's too late. It just I was not expecting the movie I got from it.
Yeah, but I think what we learned about in 2017 is still going on, though. It wasn't like that. I mean, that was obviously a moment of revelation, but I don't think we've moved on from that whatsoever, as we shouldn't have. Like, it's still happening, and there's still truth coming out from that.
And it's also a little bit about we'll get into it in spoilers, but the aftermath of that and how the people in power have adjusted.
Yep.
Or at least these people in power have adjusted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is all good spoiler talk you got right here.
For sure.
Yeah.
That and like I just watched a documentary called Brats, which is about the people in the Brat Pack. And it's directed by, I think, Judge Reinhold, the guy from 16. No, Andrew McCarthy.
Okay, yeah, no, Judge Reinhold,
not Judge Reinhold,
Beverly Hills Cop.
No.
And remind, Brat Pack's like it's like Ralph Macchio, Rob Lowe, Tom Cruise, Matt Dillon.
Yeah, I don't know if
Patrick
Ralph
Swayze
Macchio was in it, but
I guess I think of The Outsiders. Like when I think of The Outsiders, I think of that sort of the Brat Pack group.
Sure. I don't know if there were any specific people in the Brat Pack. In fact, most of them didn't really even know each other outside of randomly being in a couple movies together. Like they didn't hang out outside of work type of thing. Okay, so most commonly cited members of the Brat Pack: Emilio Estevez, Anthony Michael Hall, Rob Lowe, Andrew McCarthy, the guy who directed Bratz, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Ali Sheedy.
Oh, okay. So more like the Breakfast Club gang.
Right. Tom Cruise, Timothy Hutton, occasionally associated. James Spader, Robert Downey Jr., occasionally associated. Kevin Bacon, Matthew Broderick, John Cryer, John Cusack, Joan Cusack, Nicolas Cage, bunch of people. Basically, if you were in a movie at that time and you were young.
These were all like young actors, young hot actors in the early 80s was the Brat Pack.
Right. Anyway, the only reason I bring this up is because I didn't dislike the documentary, but it was clear that this guy didn't know how to make a movie.
Okay.
Like anytime, like as an amateur, I'm not an amateur, but as somebody who like does, shoots video podcasts, like I was very aware the first time I did it. and learned that there's a certain way to shoot something to where like it makes logical sense to somebody's brain. There's like eye lines and like certain angles. Like you shouldn't cross shoot people because then your brain can't make sense of the fact that two people are talking because it doesn't look like they're looking at each other when you cut back and forth. Anyway, the point is Bratz, great documentary from a content perspective, but from a filmmaking perspective, it was kind of annoying to watch.
Okay.
I didn't get that in Blink Twice at all. If you had told me that like an experienced filmmaker of 40 years made that movie, I would have believed it.
Yeah, it's a very competently made movie.
100%. And when I heard that like Zoe Kravitz is directing a movie, I'm not saying she would have had bad sightlines. I'm just saying I was very impressed by how well assembled this movie was.
For sure. Yeah.
So, okay. That's all the non-spoilery things we can really say about this.
I think we need to get into it here. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's letterbox this.
Okay.
And we'll put the spoiler talk at the end of the podcast. But for right now, let's letterbox it out of 5 stars. What are you going to give Blink Twice?
3.5. If it was paced better, I think it would have been a 0.5-star bump.
Okay.
But I found myself a little bored in the first like half hour at some points.
Sure. I gave it that 0.5-star bump. I'm at a 4 for
Nice.
Blink Twice.
All right.
Not a perfect movie, but I think a great debut from a promising young lady. Is she young? How old is
Zoe
Zoe
Kravitz?
She's probably in her 30s by now, right? Her dad's like 60 or something.
Yeah, he's in his 60s. I think she's younger than I am.
Yeah. Zoe Kravitz is 35 years old.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
And she's engaged to Channing Tatum.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder if that was before or after Blink Twice. Like if they've been together for a long time. Oh, this makes sense. I saw a Criterion Closet video with them in it.
Okay, yeah.
For some reason, I didn't put that together. That's in promotion of this movie.
Right. I mean, I think they've been together for a bit. I don't know when they got engaged, but
okay. Interesting.
Maybe he did his big scene and then proposed to her. She's like, yes. That's the man I want to marry.
That would be strange. Okay, a 3.5 and a 4 for Blink Twice. The spoiler version of this review will be at the end of this episode, so stick around for that. Let's move on to our top 10 movies set on an island. Was this a hard list for you to make, Kyle?
It wasn't too hard. There were a couple came to my mind right away. Galen and Megan threw in some ideas. And then you can Google, like there's a whole Wikipedia list of just movies set on an island.
Sure.
So I was able to come up with 14. I got a couple of honorable mentions.
I have 10 for my list and exactly 4 honorable mentions.
Oh, interesting. I wonder how much cross we're gonna have.
Yeah, for sure. Was there anything else, any other criteria other than the clear one that you applied to this list?
Well, I would say the fact that it takes place on an island had to be important. So like I didn't do things that take place in England because that's an island, or the island of Manhattan or Hawaii, right?
Right. Unless like that the island was a part of the story type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So I would say in my list, the island or the remoteness is the part of the story. Because I would say a lot of these movies, a lot of island movies are about remoteness. And I do wonder if, story creators choose islands, be like, this is how we can isolate people.
Sure. It eliminates a lot of variables that would ruin the logic of a lot of stories.
Exactly.
So. It's like cell phones. Like cell phones, great. Awesome invention. Maybe the worst thing if you're a screenwriter to ever happen.
Because I have to try and figure out like, why didn't they just call?
Right. From now until the end of the earth, you're going to have to figure out a reason why they didn't just pick up their cell phone.
Right. My favorite why we didn't use a cell phone excuse movie is What Lies Underneath, or What Lies Beneath. Yeah. Yes. And like in the first third of the movie, Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford are driving across a bridge. And Michelle Pfeiffer's like, oh, look, my cell phone doesn't work in the middle of the bridge. Or I don't know, she's very blatant by the fact that in the middle of the bridge, your cell phone doesn't work.
Right.
And even 25 years ago, I'm like, gee, better remember that for later in the movie.
I kind of feel like from the mid-aughts to like the mid-2010s, there was a lot of that. A lot of people putting lines in screenplays to like make sure everybody understood why they didn't use their cell phone.
Exactly.
But I feel like in the last 10 years, they just kind of don't talk about it. You know what I mean? They don't put that line in there. They also like make the cell phone usage like really low in most movies.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They don't focus on the idea that like if people were making movies that mirrored real life, half the movie would be people looking at their cell phones. So
which is, this movie actually started with a person on the toilet looking at their cell phone.
Right. You haven't watched Succession yet, right?
No, it's my prestige office.
Succession, definitely don't make it that, because I think you'll get a kick out of Succession, and that it will be right up your alley. They use the cell phone a lot in Succession, not showing you text messages, just using it to drive the plot of the characters that are currently in the same room together. You know what I mean? Like they'll be talking about one thing and then somebody will be like, holy crap. And they'll read a text out loud and then the whole scene will blow up.
So they're using a cell phone as like a ways of communication or ways to get information to the audience.
To the characters. Because the bulk of Succession is just rich people in rooms that rich people would be in, having dialogue with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really snappily written acting. Anyway, how did we get off on this? Oh, Island, similar thing. Like
remoteness. Right, exactly.
They're just trying to eliminate the variables that would ruin the logic of the plot. So did you, in ranking these, is it just like how much you like the movie, or is it like how much the island comes into play, or like what's the?
It's a little bit of both. I would say overall it's ranked by how much I like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then from my 14 that I had, I chose the ones where I thought the island was more important than the others. So
pretty much how I did it too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Like if I was to take the 14 and rank them, it would be a little bit different ranking 1 through 14. But 3, I was like, okay, or these 4, I'm like, well, the island's not as important, or I don't want it's interesting. So I'm going to take these 4 out. And these are the 10 I wanted to focus on as island movies.
Definitely. Yeah. That being said, like, man, none of mine, well, one of them you might say is a comedy, but most of them are like thrillers or dramas.
Yeah, I have 1.5 comedies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure there's other comedies that are set on an island. It's just not that important that they're on an island.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Like The Descendants, right? Isn't that about in Hawaii? That's a dramedy.
Sure. Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I mean, I guess it's about island politics, so that's, interesting.
Man, that's a movie I only saw once. Don't remember anything about.
That's an Oscar-winning movie right there.
Who won the Oscar?
Didn't Jim Rash write that movie?
Sure.
Dean from Community.
I know who Jim Rash is.
Okay.
I just don't follow the Descendants lore as closely as you do, evidently.
I
don't remember that movie at all.
Jim Rash was one of the first celebrities I followed on Instagram. I don't know why. I think I heard he had like a good Instagram account. So I was following him like during his entire
press
tour and like then the hype around Descendants. So I think that's why I know that Jim Rash won the Oscar for Descendants.
You're his biggest fan, evidently.
I might be.
Sure. Okay. You want to go first? Or you want me to?
I'll go first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll let you put the button on it.
All right.
All right. My number 10 is a movie that I don't think has ever been mentioned on this podcast before.
Oh, wow.
It's a movie I haven't seen since I was a child. But anytime I think of an island movie, I think of this movie, so I have to include it. And this is 1961's Mysterious Island.
Never heard of it.
This is a B-level monster movie. It's based on a book, a Jules Verne book of the same name. It's about a group of not Cold War. I can't think of the Civil War. There we go. A group of Civil War prisoners who escape. They're on the Union side. They're in prison on the Confederate side. They escape the Confederate prison via hot air balloon.
Mm-hmm.
They get blown over the Pacific Ocean, and they end up on this remote island that's inhabited by all these giant creatures. So one of the first things they encounter is a giant crab. They take refuge in the honeycomb of giant bees. I think there's like a giant scorpion on it. And as a kid, I just really liked this movie because of all like these people fighting these giant monsters. I watched some clips on YouTube, and it's exactly what you expect it to be, where it's like, they'll be on a beach, and then there's some rear projection of like a crab that they just zoomed in really close on. And then there's a shot of them like fighting this crab claw coming from off screen. So it's as cheesy as you expect this movie to be. But as a kid, I just thought it was super fun to watch these people fight these giant animals on this island.
This is from 1929. Is that the one you're
No,
talking about?
1961.
Okay, 19. So this is a remake, evidently.
Well, it's based on a Jules Verne book. So I don't know if it's a remake of the 1920s movie or if it's just another adaptation of the same book.
Probably just an adaptation.
Yeah,
I imagine. I was looking at the 1929 version, though, and evidently the 1929 version, again, 1929, cost $1.1 million.
Oh my goodness. How much? That's an insane amount of money.
Like with inflation, how much money is that?
Like, is that maybe the most expensive movie ever made?
Like by inflation?
Yeah.
Like by, or adjusted for inflation?
Yeah. What's that website? Like Green Wallet or Blue Coin?
Supposedly, MGM lost $878,000 on it.
Can you do a quick conversion? What does 1.1 million in 1929 convert to today?
Adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
Online. I'm trying. There's got to be a website that will do this.
Oh,
CPI,
there is. It's
inflation. Will you
it
figure
has
it
a
out?
color. It has a color in it. But there's also just inflation calculators.
Right. This one doesn't work. Why doesn't it work?
All right. How about I try and figure this out?
Okay. Sounds interesting. Do you think I would like it?
I don't. I haven't seen this movie in like 30 years.
So it's hard to know if you even like it anymore.
It's hard to know if I know like 10-year-old me liked this movie. I think it's fun in a sort of B monster movie kind of way.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah. My number 10, a little more well-known movie than what you picked for your number 10 for sure, from 1996, The Rock, which is a movie directed by Michael Bay, probably my favorite Michael Bay movie, starring Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage and Ed Harris, amongst others. And this is about Alcatraz, and like it's an action movie set on Alcatraz, which is an island just outside of San Francisco. If you didn't know, that used to be a prison. By the time this movie comes around, the prison's been decommissioned, but I don't even remember the real why do they go to Alcatraz?
Well, my number 9 is also The Rock.
Okay, well,
so we can just talk it right now. Yep. They go to Alcatraz because a terrorist group has taken over the decommissioned prison.
Right.
And they're going to, are they led by Ed Harris? Oh, that's right. It's not, it's a terrorist group. Ed Harris is a colonel with his own special task force that goes rogue. Right. Because, whatever, he doesn't think the American people, for whatever reason,
know what's
he's
really
like,
happening or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, I need to use violence to
wake everybody up.
Oh, or no. It's revenge on the military because like some of his guys were killed in war.
Mm-hmm.
But like maybe because they're special forces, like they couldn't talk about it. He has a vendetta against the American government.
Right. And so he's like threatening to like fire rockets into San Francisco, right? Or something.
Yeah, it's like a nerve agent or something like that.
Right.
Yes, that's okay. That's the setup to The Rock.
The point is, it doesn't matter what The Rock's about. It's just an action movie set on Alcatraz.
Right. The whole idea is, Alcatraz no one can break out of, and now we have to break into Alcatraz.
Right. Exactly. It's a pretty silly movie, but it's good fun in a 90s action movie kind of way. And that's why it's my number 10 and your number 9.
I think it's my favorite Michael Bay movie.
Sure.
It's definitely got a lot of Michael Bay-ness to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's Michael Biehn's in this movie also. Speaking of Michaels, Sean Connery you mentioned before. I love the scene where Nicolas Cage first meets Sean Connery, and he's like this super dangerous prisoner, and he's got this really long hair and beard, and he's all shackled up, and it's super dramatic. It's great.
And it's a way that you hadn't seen Sean Connery look like that ever in a movie up until that point. At least
he's always been kind of clean cut.
Right. He was Bond. So it was weird to see him like that.
Have you heard the fan theory that he's also Bond in The Rock?
No, but that's stupid.
Like in The Rock, people mention, oh yeah, like this guy you need, he's former MI6. He did all this stuff for us in the 60s. So I'm not saying like it was set up that way, but people then interpret that, oh, okay, he used to be a spy. He used to work in the 60s. It's James Bond, now having to be brought out of retirement to break back into Alcatraz.
Sure. I don't know about all that.
I wish Zach was here also, because The Rock sparked one of our first movie debates.
Okay.
So there's a car chase through the streets of San Francisco. And I think it's a rather nice car. It's like a Ferrari. And we were debating as kids, right? So 1996, we're like 13 years old. Was it a real Ferrari that they were driving and they crashed? Or did they take like a Honda Civic body and drop a Ferrari like chassis on top of it and then crash that? And of course it's a real Ferrari. Like that's the dumbest idea that they would like, it probably costs more money to like convert a Honda into a Ferrari than it's actually buy one. But
I don't know. I could see them doing that if they didn't want to kill a real Ferrari. Like if you didn't we just see a movie that they like destroyed like a super nice car, and I was like, it doesn't have to be one of those cars.
Oh no, I was talking about the Bond movie, Casino Royale, because I saw the exhibits where they flipped the Aston Martin. Yes.
That's what it was, and I was like, maybe it's not an Aston Martin, and you were like, no, it definitely is. But
I saw it's definitely Aston Martin. Yeah.
But if I was making a movie and I needed to kill or, ruin an Aston Martin, especially in a stunt that maybe I have to do more than once, I would just get an Aston Martin body and throw it on a beater.
I don't know how easy that is. I don't know enough about cars to know how well you can take the body of one car and drop it on another, because I'm sure there's chassis wheel distance, and I'm not a car guy.
It's not easy at all.
Yeah, so it might just be cheaper to just ruin the real one.
Probably. Especially
with like endorsements too. If you're like, hey, Ford, we're going to ruin your car, but we're going to see lots of Ford all over this movie before we ruin it.
Sure. I just watched a movie that had like a truck that was prominently in the movie, and I couldn't tell what kind of truck it was. I was impressed at how well they hid all the logos for the truck. Anyway,
so it wasn't a Barbie moment then for you, where you exactly knew what kind of car that was.
There was no Barbie moment for sure.
All right, so my number 9 is also The Rock. What's your number 9?
My number 9.
I'm sorry. Before we get to that, 1 million in 1929 is now nearly 18 million in 2024.
Okay, so it's not like an ungodly amount of money. But
no, it's not an ungodly amount of money, but still, that's a lot of money.
When was the Great Depression? Like 23?
No, 20. Was it 29 or was it 27? It was late 20s.
Okay. So the idea that like Hollywood was spending 1.3 million on a movie in the middle of the Great Depression seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
Plus they lost 3/4 of it, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they did not make his money back at all.
Yep. My number 9 is Triangle of Sadness from just a year or so ago. I think it was 2023 movie. Yeah.
That was last year. Yeah.
March 2023. This would probably be higher from like a movie quality perspective on the list, but the first half of it doesn't take place on the island.
Yes.
And so I kind of felt like, because a good portion of it isn't really an island movie, that it should just be lower. But I do love this movie. The island definitely comes into play towards the end. Like clearly, there's some things that happen in the movie that just couldn't happen if they weren't stranded on an island. I think the mystery of the island at the very end was fun too, that they reveal right at the end. And there's lots to say about Triangle of Sadness for sure.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. And also check out our episode where we talked about that movie at length. One of my favorite movies of last year, and also my number 9, Triangle of Sadness.
I'll tell you, that is an honorable mention for me. It didn't make my list because it's not fully on an island.
Sure.
And I also did not know when I saw that movie that there would be an island involved in it. So
I didn't either.
I thought could maybe put a spoiler by putting it on this list also.
I assumed the whole movie took place on that ship.
I thought the same thing too. It was all gonna be on a boat.
Yep.
All right, my number 8 is another favorite from me as a kid, but I've also watched recently and it holds up. This is 1996's Muppet Treasure Island. This is the Muppet take on the famous Treasure Island story by Robert Stevenson, I believe his name is.
Okay.
Which I read the book as a kid. Robert Louis Stevenson. There we go. Read the book as a kid. Enjoyed the book. Also enjoy the Muppets take on this. This is a story of a young boy who joins a group of merchants led by Long John Silver to go to an island, but it turns out they're actually pirates. And the Long John Silver is the evil pirate captain. In this case, he's played by Tim Curry. Tim Curry is great in this movie. I think whenever you make a Muppet movie, because the Muppets are so silly, you need someone who can bring a little gravitas and seriousness to the movie, but can also react appropriately to the ridiculousness of a Muppet. And I think Tim Curry does this in this movie. You have Michael Caine doing that in the Muppets Christmas Carol. And I really wish we got more Muppet movies where they just took classic stories and retold them, because it's super fun. I don't need a Muppet original movie. I need to see the Muppets doing some story. I could see like the Count of Monte Cristo with Muppets. It'd be fun. No, people don't know that one. Three Musketeers with Muppets. How great would that be?
I'm fine with original Muppet movies. They just have to make them better. Like Muppets Take Manhattan. That's an original Muppets movie.
That's true. Okay, but
it was like them doing a heist movie. You know what I mean? Like just give them a genre and then fill in the blanks from there.
Like I liked the Muppet movie that came out, the reboot one.
The first
but it was kind of meta also. It's like we're making a Muppet movie. And, you know, I don't know.
Then they did Muppets Most Wanted, which was not good at all.
Not good.
And basically killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't need people to talk about the Muppets as in like these are characters. Just I want Kermit doing things. And people just don't care that there's a felt frog running around.
For sure. I love Muppets Take Manhattan. That's like a top 250 movie for me.
That's been a long time. I need to see that. I think Galen needs to see that one too. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
It's the one with the rats. It's the one where Kermit loses his memory and then goes to work in like a corporate job. Do you remember that? And there's like all these other frogs wearing suits and and then he goes back to the cafeteria with the rat cooks. And everybody recognizes him, and he's like, he doesn't know any of them, and they kidnap him. It's so good. I love that movie.
Is that where the rats are ice skating with butter? Oh, I love that movie. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great.
It's the best Muppets movie, in my opinion.
Does that have the salad catapult also for the tossed salad?
Sure. I don't remember.
I think they have the salad catapult.
It sounds like it would
catapult.
be in that.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay. My number 8 is a comedy titled Joe versus the Volcano, which is another movie that probably would be higher, but it doesn't entirely take place on an island. In fact, it doesn't even mostly take place in an island. It may be like a third of it. The back third takes place on an island. But the bulk of the movie is about the island and them getting to the island in order to, progress the movie. If you haven't seen Joe versus the Volcano, it stars Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Tom Hanks is a guy, speaking of droll office jobs, he's got like the drollest of office jobs. Works in a windowless room with like halogen lights above that like blink constantly. And it's just an awful corporate existence, basically. And he gets told that he has a brain fog that's going to kill him. And then a rich person offers him a bunch of money to take a trip to an island and sacrifice himself in a volcano in order to, I don't remember, save the island or something. I don't remember why exactly.
Okay.
But he has to do this. Have you seen Joe versus the Volcano?
I have never seen this movie, no.
I think you would like it.
Okay.
I guess I won't spoil it then. He makes it to the island. Surprise, surprise. And over the course of the movie, he falls in love with Meg Ryan and has a hard time reconciling the fact that he's basically on a suicide mission. And his life that was so empty, now he has a love in his life and he's experienced this great adventure. And now he's expected to jump into a volcano because that's the deal he made, type of thing. And he knows he's going to die anyway. So he's like, but everything's starting to go well.
Yeah.
Like the moment I decided I didn't care because I was going to die anyway, all of a sudden all these things go well for me. It's a good comedy, but it's one with edge because the satire on the idea of like modern existence and like working a 9 to 5 is like baked into the movie. And then on top of that, you got Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan at like the height of their charm.
Right. Yeah.
Basically. But with a director that's not making, I don't know, You've Got Mail. You know what I mean? Like he's making a genre movie that has Tom Hanks, has a love story in the center of it.
Did you say who the director is?
John Patrick Shanley.
Okay, not familiar.
He hasn't done a whole lot of other things. He wrote Moonstruck. I take that back. He has written a ton of things. He hasn't directed a ton of things. Man, maybe the only movie I've seen from him that he directed. Unless I have the wrong person. Did I click? No, directed by him.
Okay. Interesting.
Anyway, I don't know when you'll check it out, but if you ever get the chance, do it.
All right. Well, I will maybe check it out. No promises on that one. So,
Okay.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes.
Oh, okay. Here. Sorry.
Okay.
He's directed 3 movies. One of them is Joe versus the Volcano.
Okay.
One of them is Doubt. Have you seen Doubt?
I have not seen Doubt.
You know what it is, though?
It's a priest movie.
It's a movie about priests abusing kids, but it's more about the sisters who find out about it and then go public with it.
It's Philip Seymour Hoffman, right? And Meryl Streep?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yes, I have it on Blu-ray, but I haven't found a reason to rewatch it yet. Amy Adams,
Yeah.
Viola Davis, Meryl Streep.
Viola Davis also. Yeah. Yeah, it's not like a movie you want to watch over and over again.
It's so good. Like the acting in it is Viola Davis won an Academy Award for it. I mean,
that's right.
It's really good. And then he did another movie, Wild Mountain Time. Never heard of it. Anyway,
Never heard of that one either.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. Is that time with a TH?
THYME.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's an herb. All right, cool. My number 7 is this is March of 2019. I think this is a 2020 movie when I actually was able to see it. This is a French film called Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh yeah.
This is
That's an
period
island
piece.
movie?
It is an island movie, yes.
Okay.
It takes place in the 18th century. It's about a woman who lives with her family on a island off the coast of France. They're the I don't know, the upper class, the elite within French society. And this woman needs to be married off because that's what happens. You know, once you come of age, your father marries you off to someone else, and that's how, you know, family fortunes continue to go.
Mhm.
And there's no cameras during this era, so how potential women are advertised to potential suitors are via portraits. A portrait's drawn of them, and that portrait's kind of passed around to all the available men out there, so they can kind of see what this woman looks like. And this woman has never had her portrait taken before. She's a bit peculiar. She does not want her portrait to be made of her, but her father insists. So they bring in another female portrait artist to draw her, to make the portrait. And over the time of making this portrait, these two women become friends. They become a very complicated relationship with each other. because you get the sense that this woman who lives on this island doesn't have much friends or contact with any people on the outside world at all.
Mm-hmm.
And their relationship kind of builds from there. So this is a movie about female friendship and about female love. And the use of the island is both this beautiful place, but also with these huge cliffs as a very daunting place where any moment, if things go south, you could just jump off those cliffs if you wanted to, because they're right there. This is a movie that it's not a horror film, but so many times it's shot like a horror film. Like you think something's going to jump out, or you're following like a character from behind down a hallway for a long tracking shot. And there's something very beautiful and haunting in this movie that I can't quite put my finger on.
Yeah. It's a good one. I like the movie a lot, for sure. My next movie, what are we on? Number 7.
You're number 7. Yep.
Is the 1933 version of King Kong, the original King Kong.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I saw when I was younger, like it was on TV, whatever. I half watched it. I was real young. And then when I got older, I was like, I should really watch the original King Kong. And so when Peter Jackson's version came out, I watched it at home, probably on DVD, I would guess. And whatever.
Yeah.
And then I saw it in a movie theater maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And
okay,
I just really enjoyed the movie. I don't know why, but seeing it in a movie theater changed my experience with that movie completely.
Really?
I can't really explain it other than it's one of the few movies, that movie and maybe Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail are the only two movies that like I watched at home and then someday saw it in a movie theater. And watching Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail in a movie theater was annoying because everybody in the audience kept saying the lines with the characters on the screen.
Yeah.
That annoyed me. With King Kong, I think I watched it in a theater with like maybe a dozen people at most. The big old theater. I used Movie Pass when it was like $10, so it didn't cost me much. And just really was able to focus on the movie, see it huge in black and white. With some perspective, if you're used to modern effects, it's a little cheesy and, it's a product of its time for sure. But I was able to sink into it and really appreciate the cinematography of the movie that maybe I just wasn't giving a fair shake like the first couple times I saw it at home, probably distracted. And I think I got it on third viewing or so. And it just took completely removing all distractions and making it, 2 stories tall in front of me for me to really key into why this was such a big movie. And I really enjoyed it. And that's why, and it takes place on an island, mostly
on Skull Island, right?
Right. On Skull Island.
Yeah.
That's the first 70% of the movie is them going to the island, finding King Kong, figuring out how to capture him, and then the back half of the movie is them bringing him back to New York City and having him rampage the city. So,
which is on the island of Manhattan,
which is
so I guess we can count it.
Yeah, you got it.
Galen's into King Kong right now.
Okay.
He saw King Kong Godzilla New Empire, which he really liked. He's got like a King Kong Godzilla action figures. And he wants to see the original King Kong. And I think, like he sat through Dr. Caligari and enjoyed that. I think he might be able to watch King Kong. It's it's longer though, isn't it? It's like 2 hours long or
100 minutes.
Oh, okay. Not as long as I thought. For some reason, I thought it was a long movie. So
I don't think it's. So the first one wasn't very long. The Peter Jackson version is like 2.5 hours long.
Oh, that's so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember he was ice skating in Central Park?
Sure. I wonder. I think he'll be into it because they're kind of action movies.
Exactly.
Like the 1933 one is pretty snappy. But it's definitely not what King Kong versus Godzilla is. Like, that movie is practically a cartoon.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think he knows that it's an old movie. Like, it's not like he's expecting top of the line special effects.
Sure.
I'd be curious to know what he thinks of it, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in the King Kong mode right now. So we've got to strike while the iron's hot.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. My number 6. Maybe this would be a lot of people's number 1. This is definitely an island movie. It's maybe the first island movie most people think about. 2000's Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis. This stars Tom Hanks. He works for FedEx. He is on a plane one day flying over the Pacific when his FedEx cargo plane crashes into the ocean. He survives the crash, washes up on a abandoned island with only the few packages that were on the plane to help him survive. And this becomes a survival movie where he's on the island. He accepts that no one's coming for him. And if he is going to survive and get off this island, he must do it himself. And I mean, this is Tom Hanks at his peak. I would say he's still a great actor. But if you think like Tom Hanks, 80s, he was building, 90s, he just kind of took off. And I would say maybe Castaway is like peak Tom Hanks in both popularity and just box office draw.
Absolutely. I mean, this might have been just past his biggest box office draw, but
Saving Private Ryan.
I don't know.
What are you thinking would be big? What do you think would be a bigger movie than this?
Big era.
A big was like 88.
Yeah, I feel like 80s into 90s when he was like the guy in the romantic comedies. I feel like that was when he was the most commercially,
or like Forrest Gump era, maybe.
Right. That's what I mean.
Okay,
like
that's
90s. True. Like by the time the aughts came around, he was getting too old to be the romantic lead in things.
No, but instead he's playing the survival. Maybe this is him entering dad mode.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, okay. I'm going to remake my statement. This is, in Saving Private Ryan, he's the captain. He's kind of the dad of the group. And now this is him in dad movie mode of like a man, middle-aged guy by himself on an island's got to survive.
Sure.
And if you want to see me recreate the saddest moment in cinema history when he loses Wilson, hop on our Instagram. You might have to do some scrolling. But on there is a video of me doing the Wilson scene.
Was that when
Taskmaster
right
episode?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which might be you might be able to watch the Taskmaster YouTube episode too. It might be spliced in there also.
It's in there somewhere.
You can also see Zach doing the Lion King. So enjoy those, and you're welcome.
All right, my number 6. My number 6 is a movie from 1968 called Hell in the Pacific.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of this movie?
I have not.
It stars Lee Marvin and Toshiro Mifune.
The samurai guy.
Yep, Toshiro Mifune, who was in a bunch of Akira Kurosawa movies, right?
Correct. Yes.
And he was also in Inagaki's Samurai Trilogy and a bunch of other stuff. Basically, if there's a famous movie from Japan that involves samurais, he was probably in it from like the 70s to the 90s or so.
Oh, 60s. Yeah.
And
even
60s,
before that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, and then Lee Marvin, also a famous actor from the time. Anyway, the movie only has these two guys in it, and it's set during World War II. And Toshiro's character is already on the island. He crash landed. They're on opposite sides during World War II, so he crash landed and has already kind of colonized this island for his survival on some level. And then all of a sudden, an American plane goes down, and so now you got this American and this Japanese soldier. They're on the same deserted island.
Okay.
And the first half of the movie, they're warring, right? They're like trying to kill each other, basically, because they're still in like fight mode. And then at some point, about halfway through, they realize they only got each other. You know what I mean? And like So if one of them kills the other one, like, what happens?
Mhm.
You're alone on this island, right? So they kind of become friends, reluctant friends
Right. Okay.
in survival, essentially. And so the back half of the movie is these guys kind of reminding themselves that they're human
hmm
and that they're the enemy, the person that they've dehumanized, is actually just in the same boat as they are,
Okay. Yeah.
type of thing. And they're, they see themselves as like warriors for their side. And over the course of the movie, they both kind of come to the unspoken realization that they're just a cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
their motivation to kill each other was born from that, and not like any sense of right and wrong, really. More wanting to win, and not lose. And I wouldn't say it's an anti-war movie, but it definitely has a little bit of a streak of that towards the back end of the movie.
Okay.
And it's fun to see these two guys act opposite each other and come up with ways to like. There's a little bit of like a trolling element to it, because the character played by Toshiro definitely has the upper hand through most of the movie, because he knows the island and like already has a way to get water and other things, whereas the Lee Marvin character is just trying to survive kind of the first 20 minutes of the movie or so. But I really enjoyed this movie. I watched it blind. I got it on Blu-ray in a lot of movies, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I just put it in and was like immediately sucked in, and was kind of like, how come I never heard of this? Because it kind of feels like a little hidden gem. But regardless, it's now my number 6. It takes place completely on an island.
So I'm actually intrigued by that movie because it reminds me of another movie I really like called No Man's Land.
Okay. Similar
which
premise.
takes place during the Bosnian War. Sorry, what'd you say?
Similar premise.
Yeah. It's during the Bosnian War, and a Bosnian and Serbian soldier end up in a trench together.
Okay.
And they can't leave. I think there's like a landmine involved somehow, so they can't leave the trench.
2001. Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds exactly right. Yep. And it's the same thing. They hate each other, but then because they're trapped together, they start talking and they learn more about why do they hate each other, and it's finding the humanity in some other person.
That's worth seeing.
Oh yeah, I think it's worth seeing. And if your movie, the Hell in the Pacific. Yep. I mean, that sounds like a very similar premise, so I want to see that one too.
Nice. I'm pretty sure it's not based on a true story. I already have No Man's Land in my watch list. Have you talked about it on the podcast before?
I've mentioned it multiple times, I think so. Yeah.
I probably watch listed it from you.
Okay.
But I'll get to it.
I would say watch that one before you watch Mysterious Island.
Okay.
All right. My number 5 is a movie we talked on the podcast maybe a year and a half ago, and that is 2022's, maybe it might be a 2023 release, The Menu. This is directed by Mark Mylod, stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult as a couple that goes to a remote island for an exclusive restaurant experience put on by a famous chef played by Ralph Fiennes. And we'll just say that this meal is way more than they're expecting to get from the evening. This movie has a lot of themes going on about it. There's definitely themes of classism and class structure in the movie, but there's also a big critique on foodie culture and Instagram culture and the kind of the whole culture around fine dining that I found super interesting. And then also Megan, my wife, who is a bakery chef who has worked in restaurants before. She found it all very interesting too, this sort of take on the whole culture around food and restaurant experiences. This is a movie that does go places. So I would say, if you're squeamish, I would avoid possibly this movie. But I found it to be really interesting and a bit of a standout movie that I had not heard of, but surprised me when I saw it.
Nice. I didn't like that one as much as you and Zach did, from my memory, but I do think it's a worthwhile movie.
Definitely. And I think Megan came on the episode where we discussed it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So if you want her take on it, go back in the archive.
Go check
find the menu.
Yep. My number 5 is from 2017. It's a movie titled Papillon,
Never seen this one.
which is a remake of an older film from 1973. I don't know if it's a remake. It's another adaptation
Right.
of a book, a French book about a prison break. There was a prison in French Guiana, I think is how you say,
Okay.
the penal colony. And this guy goes to prison for a murder he didn't commit, but still was sentenced. And so he's sent away to this prison, and this prison is like a nightmare. It's like on an island. It's like, Alcatraz, basically. There's nowhere to go, essentially. You could break out, but what would be the point? Because you just die in the ocean, essentially. So this guy gets sent to prison, and the bulk of the movie is about him adapting to the prison, learning the ways of the prison, meeting other prison people, and kind of building a life on this island that he can live with, essentially, in this prison environment. And then at some point, another prisoner comes into the picture and decides he's going to break out of the prison. And so Papillon decides to help him because he has more to live for than he does or whatever. And so it's a prison breakout movie. And I've seen both the original and the remake. And I'm sure people who like the original don't like the remake as well.
Yeah.
But modern filmmaking, to me, did this movie a lot of justice, I would say, compared to the original. Like, the original's fine, but I liked the updated version of it. I think it's lesser seen, and I doubt it got it's got 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not exactly great.
No,
but I liked
good.
it. I liked it. And it's a little long from my memory, 133 minutes. It stars Charlie Hunnam from the FX motorcycle show.
Oh, Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy.
Yep.
Also Rami Malek from that Queen movie that everybody loved that I didn't like that much. And a bunch of
Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah.
a bunch of other dudes that I'm sure you've seen in other movies because it's a prison break movie.
Right.
So anyway, if you're in the mood for kind of like a survival prison break movie set on an island, period piece, check out Papillon from 2017, movie that kind of came and went and nobody even noticed.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay.
But I did not know it was I knew nothing about it. So.
Sure. I liked it.
Nice. All right, my number 4 is a 2016 movie released by award-winning directors Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan, known as the Daniels. This is not Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is their first movie, Swiss Army Man.
Wait. It's not an island movie.
It is an island movie. Let me read you
Okay.
the very beginning. Alone on a tiny desert island, Hank has given up all hope of ever making home again. But one day, everything changes when a dead body washes ashore, and he soon realizes it may be his last opportunity to escape certain death.
I'm going to allow it, but like, if you've seen the movie.
Yeah, and I'm going to admit right now, I forgot that the island's only at the beginning of the movie. I thought most of the movie took place in the island, and the minute you said something, I'm like, oh, you're right. It starts on an island. But I'm going to keep going with it because we're here on my list. So, okay.
Fair enough.
Yep, you are very right. I thought this whole movie took place on the island. It starts on a deserted island.
Which I still have an issue with that phrase, but go ahead.
I don't want to. Yes. Okay.
Right.
Right. So this movie stars Paul Dano. Paul Dano is on a deserted island.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even sure why he's there. He's on this island.
He's stranded on what he thinks is an island.
Exactly.
Right.
And he is about to. He's like, he's got nothing left. He's out of hope. He's about to end his own life when a dead body, played by Daniel Radcliffe, washes ashore.
Mm-hmm.
This dead body, I guess we could say, comes alive would be the best way to put it, and befriends Paul Dano and gives him what he needs. Like, he needs water, and this dead body can give him water. He needs to get around the ocean, and he can ride Daniel Radcliffe like a jet ski who uses flatulence to propel himself. This is the farting corpse movie, if anyone wants to know what movie we're talking about.
All right. The movie that Zach refuses to see because there's a farting corpse in it.
Oh, yeah. It's towards the beginning of the movie. I would say there's a lot weirder and darker reasons to not see this movie besides a farting corpse, which I don't want to get into.
They pretty much drop the farting corpse stuff like 30 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. It's not throughout the entire movie, right? I mean, but this is a movie about a man who befriends a corpse, who finds a new lease on life because of this corpse, because of his friend, and his quest to return to the woman that he loves. It's a very weird movie. It's a dark movie. It's definitely a movie that can be spoiled, which I don't want to get into, but it is the first movie that I saw from A24 Studio. I saw this in the theater.
Really? I'm kind of jealous that you saw it in the theater.
I saw it in the theater. It was a pretty empty theater. There were some walkouts. This movie ended, and I was like, right away, I said to myself, I want to see every movie this studio puts out. Like, if they're going to put this out, I want to see everything they do. Then I think the next movie was like American Honey, which I did not see. So right away, I went back on my promise to myself. But I'd say overall, I've been impressed with A24. And for me, I think this is a pretty great first A24 experience. And the first of the Daniels experience. Like, who knew these guys would then go on to make a Oscar-winning Best Picture, Best Director, whole bunch of Oscars for Best Actor, Supporting Actor.
Right.
From this movie. Yeah.
Well, I think in retrospect, it makes total sense. Like, you can see the through line from Swiss Army Man to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, maybe that Everything Everywhere All at Once would hit the zeitgeist the right way to become an Oscar-winning movie, to win so many Oscars, where Swiss Army Man has similar sensibilities to it, but was kind of seen as this odd independent film.
Yeah. Well, I think they had to remove the farting. You know what I mean? Like, they had to make the weirdness acceptable. And in Swiss Army Man, it's just a bridge too far. The farting's just a bridge too far for most people. Plus, it happens right at the beginning of the movie. Whereas with Everything Everywhere All at Once, you know, there's some adult toy scenes and like a couple of other things that are really far-fetched for some people. But it comes so late, and everything already, the wackiness has built in that movie. Whereas with Swiss Army Man, it starts strange. You know what I mean?
Yes. So. And I would also say where Everything Everywhere All at Once is a overall positive and hopeful movie. Swiss Army Man's pretty dark.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nihilistic movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
Well, my number 4 partially takes place on an island for the first 10 minutes movie.
Fair enough. My number 4, speaking of nihilism, is from 2019, The Lighthouse.
My number 3 is The Lighthouse.
Nice.
That's a bingo.
Let's talk about it then. Robert Eggers, director of The Witch, followed up with The Lighthouse, movie starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. They're lighthouse keepers. They're alone on this island. One of them played William Dafoe's kind of the head light keeper, and Robert Pattinson's the assistant light keeper. And over the course of the movie, they get to know each other, as well as go deeper into isolation madness, I would say.
Exactly.
They're alone on this island with just each other, and they're both just kind of going insane because monotony and weather, cloudiness, constant darkness type of thing. It's a black and white movie, shot 4:3. Very specific movie that reminds me of more like a what's the guy that wrote Cthulhu?
Lovecraft.
Right. It's a very Lovecraftian tale, I would say.
Yes. it's not a horror movie per se, but it's definitely there's droppings of horror around this movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wikipedia calls it a horror psychological thriller character study.
I think character study is the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie where you don't know who's sane, who's insane. You don't know what to believe that you see on screen.
Absolutely. I still don't know what to believe. I've seen the movie like 3 times.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is an answer per se. I think it's one of these movies where you can watch it and you can decide for yourself what's happening, what isn't.
Yeah.
I've heard theories that they're the same person.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but the island plays a big character in the story. The idea that they're stuck on the island, that they don't know when they're getting off the island, these types of things.
There's no sense of time for them either.
Right.
It seems like
Exactly.
relief is always pushed out for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Anything else with the lighthouse that we need to say?
I mean, and I think when we say an island, this is a bare rock in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
There's no trees. There's birds. There's no indigenous plants or animals. It's a rock with a lighthouse on it, and that's it. So
right. There's nowhere to go.
There's no refuge from each other.
Right. All right.
All right. Well, so that was my number 3. So what's your number 3?
Oh, my number 3 is Castaway, the aforementioned Castaway. You said you probably couldn't do a list without putting Castaway on it somewhere, and you're right. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I had to put it on here somewhere. I, right before we started recording, needed something to watch while I ate dinner real quick, and so I stuck Castaway in again.
Oh, nice.
I'm right at the scene where the plane crashes. So I haven't actually gotten to the island part, but I forgot that like the first half hour, it's a solid half hour before he gets on the island.
Right. It's like him and Helen Hunt, and you're learning all about the inner workings of FedEx.
Right. But the movie is 144 minutes. So even though the first half hour is all set up, there's still like an hour and 45 minutes of him on the island. I remember specifically seeing this movie in a movie theater at Disney at the AMC 24 and just like having a vague sense that this was Tom Hanks in a movie about how he's, on a deserted island or whatever. But like the year 2000 when this came out was like, I was like, The Matrix had just come out. Fight Club had just come out. You know what I mean? Like this was like a lot of movies were like hitting the brain, and I was like really in the heat of my movie fandom. You know what I mean? Like this was when I was really starting to realize that I didn't just like Star Wars. I liked a lot of movies. You know what I mean? And wanted to watch a lot of them all of the time. I was getting very steeped in it. And saw Castaway, did not know about the mid-movie cut to black. And then you come back and like it literally a year later.
Oh, the time jump.
The time jump.
Yes.
And the fact that they filmed the first half of the movie and then took a year off and then filmed the back half of the movie. I just never thought that a filmmaker would do that. And Robert Zemeckis did. Right?
Yeah.
Robert Zemeckis?
That's Zemeckis, yeah.
Did they do that other movie together? That
Polar Express?
Forrest Gump, right? Isn't that Robert
Yes, that's
Zemeckis?
also Zemeckis, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was Polar Express before Castaway or after?
I think that was after. Ooh.
I don't remember.
That might have been before.
I don't remember.
I think that was before.
Do you like that movie?
I watched Polar Express. The only reason I think it was before, because I remember watching it on a train ride to Boy Scout camp in the 90s.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't think I have an opinion on it.
I do.
Like it was the only thing to watch on this this long Amtrak train ride. So I think, maybe clouded by the fact there's nothing else to do.
I don't like that movie.
Okay.
I think like as far as like Christmas movies, like why do people care about that movie? I think it's a nostalgia thing because I don't think it's a very good movie.
That's kind of like not the rotoscope. It's lifelike characters, right?
Mocap.
Thank you. That's what I was going for. Yeah. Okay.
It's the mocap movie. And Robert Zemeckis made Beowulf before that, so it's like his second attempt at
And
mocap.
Christmas Carol also afterwards, didn't he, with Jim Carrey?
Was that mocap too?
I think it's mocap also. Yeah.
Just so we needed a motion capture Christmas Carol adaptation.
Well,
What a great idea.
I think he kind of stopped after that one, so I think maybe we didn't need it.
Sure. It bothers me though, because they release like these DVD sets of like Christmas classics, and there's like 4 movies in it, and one of them is always
Polar Express.
Polar Express. And I'm like, who thinks this is a classic? This is not a classic. This should be in the dustbin of history.
It wasn't even a book that I liked as a kid. Like I have no connection to that book, that movie.
Yeah. Anyway, regardless, Castaway is great, and it's mostly set on an island. My number 3.
Nice. My number 2 is another Lighthouse movie. This is 2014's Song of the Sea. It's directed by Tom Moore, who also made The Secret of Kells and Wolfwalkers, which are another 2 great movies with very interesting animation styles. And Song of the Sea keeps the same animation style, which I'll talk to in a little bit. This is about a Irish boy who's the son of a lighthouse keeper. His mother gives birth to their baby daughter, or I say to a baby, her daughter, his little sister, and then the mother disappears. And this movie kind of jumps forward, and we learn that this boy has come to resent his little sister, whose name is Saoirse, for causing the disappearance of his mother. But then I guess a whole Irish folk tale kicks off from there about seals and creatures of the sea and this family's connection to the sea, which I don't want to get too much into, because that's kind of the joy of the movie. And this is a really beautiful movie. I think more people need to see it, just because it is so heartfelt in its story, and it has a beautiful relationship between this, or I should say a complicatedly beautiful relationship between this this boy and his younger sister, who's innocent in all of this, but he still blames for everything. The relationship he has with his father, who's also a grieving widower. The animation itself, if you've seen either Secret of Kells or Wolfwalkers, Tom Moore in his studio, they do kind of a blending of 2D and 3D, where the characters might be 3-dimensional, but everything that they're interacting with is a 2-dimensional scene. So it has a very just unique look to it. It's a movie that I think everyone should see. It's a family movie. It's got a lot of emotion to it, and it's a really beautiful story.
I think it's the only one from him that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's only done the 3, Wolfwalkers,
Right.
this, and Secret of Kells.
But I've seen Secret of Kells and Wolfwalkers, and I like Wolfwalkers better than Secret of Kells for sure, but Wolfwalkers is pretty good.
Yeah,
sure.
I like this one more than Wolfwalkers.
Okay.
And I liked Wolfwalkers a lot, so.
I'll have to check it out. It's interesting that, like, for some reason in my brain, I consider those anime, and they're really not. He's like,
No,
he's like
they're
Irish, right?
He's Irish, yeah.
Yeah. But for some reason in my brain, it feels like an anime movie.
Is it because of like the faces and the large eyes? Like maybe how he draws characters are similar to anime style?
That, and it's just not. I think that's definitely part of it, and also like it's not American. You know what I mean? It's clearly not made by Americans, just by the style of it and the writing and everything about it, pretty much.
Well, so if I go to Letterboxd and I scroll down to similar films, other similar films, My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, Spirited Away, The Secret of Ariadne, right? So
totally feels like in that world.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, I will. I'll add it to my Letterboxd watch list. My number 2, is that where we're at? 2? Yep.
Yes.
My number 2 is from 1960, and it's called Swiss Family Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
This is an adventure movie starring a bunch of people that you probably wouldn't remember the names of. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Family gets marooned on an island, and they have to survive the island and live on it as a family. And they build like a cool tree house to get up above the animals, and they befriend some of the animals. Some of them are out to kill them and eat them, and so they figure out how to avoid that. And then at some point in the movie, towards the end of it, some pirates show up to the island, and instead of wanting to save the family, they want to capture the family. And so there's a big swashbuckling adventure sequence at the end where the family uses their ingenuity and booby traps that they've set up to battle the pirates. And this is a Disney live action movie. I would say most people would consider it a classic. And I watched it a bunch as a kid, watched it again as an adult a couple times as an adult over the last 25 years or so. And think it holds up pretty well for what it is. I mean,
Right.
We're not talking Citizen Kane here, but as kids' adventure movies go, I think it holds up despite its age. And it's in my top 250. I think it's like in the 150 range. And yeah, the magic has not worn off on me when it comes to Swiss Family Robinson, a movie set on an island.
I consider this movie.
Mhm.
I have not seen in such a long time.
Sure.
And it doesn't stick with me like Mysterious Island does. So I couldn't put my list. I do want to watch it again. I want to watch it with Galen. I'm concerned that it's slow, being that from 1960.
I don't think it's too slow.
Okay.
126 minutes. A little long for a kid's movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's slow, but again, I'm attached to it. So
Right. You have the exactly.
maybe it is, and I just don't see that flaw in it.
But like I remember watching this like on the Disney Channel back in the 80s and as a kid. So
Mhm.
it's nostalgia there. You just remind me of a movie that I forgot to put on my list. So I just added it to my my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Yep. So I got 15 now there, but I wish I put this movie on my list. I didn't, so I have to save it for later.
Fair enough.
I'm just gonna say if Zach's listening, he's probably disappointed that this does not make my top 10 list. Because this is one of the few obscure movies that both he and I have seen. Separate of each other. Just happened we both seen this movie.
Okay.
But that's not what my number one is, so you have to find out later. My number one, this might be an obvious pick, but it's a great island movie. It's Jurassic Park from 1993.
That's a bingo.
Yep, I kind of figured to be your number one also.
My number one as well. I mean,
Yep.
it's the first movie that came to mind when I sat down to make this list, for sure.
It's the second after Mysterious Island.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, but we've talked about this movie a ton, but this movie has to be on an island because you've got dinosaurs being bred for a zoo. The only way you can contain them is on an island, because we find out in the second movie what happens when they get off the island.
Right. Things far less interesting than when they're on the island, evidently.
Well, I would actually say my favorite part of The Lost World is when the T-Rex gets into San Diego.
I agree. I mean, there wasn't much to that movie other than that sequence, for sure.
Right.
But it's still not nearly as scary as
no.
the humans being trapped on an island with dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, no. This movie, Jurassic Park, is a unicorn in this series. Where for me, no movie in this series has able to pick the right amount of adventure and danger and accessible horror and adventure. If I said the movie with that word already, that Jurassic Park could.
Absolutely.
All the other movies have tried in some way, shape, or form, and you never feel that danger and that thrill that Jurassic Park gives me.
It's Steven Spielberg, man. Like when he's at the top of his game, he makes perfect movies.
This is a perfect movie.
Yeah. I think Jurassic Park is a perfect movie. And if they had only made that one and walked away, I'm not saying like the legacy of Jurassic Park tainted the original, but it all just seems lesser than that first one.
I don't mind that they made lesser sequels. I'm disappointed that he made the second one. If someone else had made the second one, I would have been like, yeah, okay, well, it's not Spielberg. Of course, this will be a lesser movie.
Right.
But the fact that he made the second one, and there are flashes of brilliance I don't say brilliance. There are moments in The Lost World which almost hit the same as Jurassic Park. Almost. But there's also other moments where are just eye rolling.
Yeah, the action sequences in Jurassic World You're
Lost World.
Lost World. You're seeing like, oh, there's some Steven Spielberg in there. There just wasn't enough story. It wasn't interesting enough from a story perspective, in my opinion.
No, it really was. We need an excuse to go back to the island.
Mm-hmm.
Think of something.
Right. Yep. I know I've said this on the podcast. I just don't remember if I've said it to you. What the original's plan for Jurassic Park 3 was. I wish they had done that.
I say it again.
The original plan, if you remember in Jurassic Park 3, there's a kid who gets stuck on the island alone, and like his stepdad was taking him out there for some reason. So the kid gets stuck on the island alone. That happens before the credits at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Then the rest of the movie is Taya Leone and whatever his name is.
William H. Macy.
William H. Macy, like a couple that had broken up. They're going to the island to try to find their son, and then they rekindle their marriage over the course of the movie. Perfectly fine plot. I like Jurassic Park 3. I know not everybody does, but I do. But the original script for that movie was a survival movie about the kid on the island.
Oh, that'd be much better.
And like how
in theory, it's a better movie.
How he got like on the island, and then how he survived. Like it was just a survival movie about the kid on the island. They thought it was too dark. But that's the movie I want to see.
Oh yeah, that's a much better movie.
100%. So,
do you want to do honorable mentions, or should we save that for the Patreon?
Let's save it for the Patreon.
Okay, good. A little sprinkle there, a little incentive
teaser.
To shell out your $1 a month.
Speaking of the Patreon, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, if you support day one, there's literally like 100 episodes of the after show, about half of which are topical for the moment. So I don't know if they'd be that fun to listen to, but the other half are like us just goofing around, and you can listen at any time, playing movie games, talking about random subjects, mostly movie related, but not always. And it's a good listen. Point is, if you subscribe now, there's plenty of content if you can't get enough. James, Kyle, and Zach. It's all sitting for you right over there for, just supporting the podcast. We appreciate it. Either way, we appreciate you listening to this episode 653 of the Cinereelists. Don't forget, check out the video version on YouTube. Support us on Patreon. Leave us an Apple Podcast review, or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. All of those things are in the description of this episode. You could also follow us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or TikTok @Cinereelists, or you can follow me on my personal Twitter, Blue Sky, or Letterboxd account @YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd @PeterSKB.
We will be back next week with Brothers, which is a movie that's coming out next Thursday on Amazon Prime. And it's a comedy thriller, from what I understand. Don't know too much about it, but we're going to check it out. If you want to do a little pre-watching, that's what we're watching next week. Brothers on Amazon Prime. And I think that's it, Kyle. You got anything else to say?
Got nothing else.
All right. Patreon listeners, we'll see you over there. The rest of you, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
This is spoiler talk for Blink Twice, a movie directed by Zoë Kravitz. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to stay spoiler free, then you should pause this right now and come back to it. And if you have seen the movie or you don't care about spoilers, then you should listen on, because we're going to talk openly and honestly about Blink Twice. What do we have to say about Blink Twice? Should we just come out with like what the big twist is, or do we build into that?
I think we can come out.
Okay.
So you said that this movie, reminded you of, what movie did this remind you of?
Promising Young Woman.
Promising Young Woman, right? This movie, to
A little
me,
bit in the content, just because they're both about women revenging.
right? Exactly. Yep.
There's a little bit of a Me Too element mixed in, I would say, and also first-time filmmakers.
So for all those reasons, I got, but maybe less of the Me Too, but more of the abuse of power. I got Get Out vibes from this movie.
That was definitely in there. I agree.
Yep.
100%.
So yeah, I think we can we can breadcrumb it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the two main characters, Aaliyah Shawkat and what was her name? I can't remember the actress's name.
The
Aki?
actress,
Is it
right? Naomi Ackie.
Naomi Ackie? Thank you. So they're on this island. They're friends together. They're friends.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is kind of strangers to them. Party. And then one day, Naomi Ackie realizes that Aaliyah Shawkat is gone, missing. No one remembers that Aaliyah Shawkat was even on the island in the first place. Like, all the other girls are like, who are you talking about? Goes to her room. The room is a storage closet, right? So you get a sense of like, well, did Aaliyah Shawkat ever exist? Like, is this movie lying to us? Who do you trust? Who do you not trust? We then learn that actually the women are being assaulted every single night by the men, to the point where it's a game to the men. You know, it's definitely a game of cat and mouse, where the women are running for their lives because they don't want to be assaulted by these men. And the glimpses we see, it's, I mean, there's no such thing as gentle assault, but we're talking like people being tied up. It's just, you know, it's bad. But they are being drugged to forget. Right. So, you know, every day is party. Everything's fine. Night is a horror show, but they wake up with no memory of that whatsoever.
And it has something to do with the perfume, right?
Yes, I think it has, like, all of their rooms have this perfume in it, and they wear it. You know, we see them; they're always drinking champagne with strawberries. They're smelling flowers. So I kind of get the sense that everything is poisoned with this forget me drug, and the men just know, don't drink this, don't eat that, don't, you know.
Right.
Don't
And there's
use this stuff.
There's a specific snake on the island, this venomous snake that supposedly, this is a little convoluted, but supposedly the venom is the forgetful potion. It
causes you to remember. Exactly.
Right. It's the antidote type of thing that causes you to remember.
In the middle of the movie, Aaliyah Shawkat gets bit by the snake.
Right.
And then the next day she disappears.
Right.
And then our characters figure out to drink the poison too. And that's how they kind of start piecing together. Oh, well, I remember this.
The groundskeeper, remember, gives her some to drink. So I think the groundskeeper knows that this will wake her up.
Yes.
And that the memory potion will no longer work on her. So the person that you assume is going to be the issue in this movie, although you get strong vibes from the men over the course, but they're at least setting up that something's weird about this old lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So to me, she was always a red herring. Like, I never felt like the groundskeepers are the danger here.
I could tell that they were going to be involved, but probably not the main bad guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I was interested in seeing how that played out, and I was not expecting it to be that she gives a girl snake venom to drink, and it makes her regain her memory.
Right. Now, I will say, upon reflecting on all this 24 hours later, I don't really know how well this holds water. Like, just the decision of this groundskeeper is going to give this woman venom now, because it almost seems like she stumbles upon the groundskeeper while she's juicing the stakes for their venom. So I guess I think this is maybe a flaw in the movie. I don't understand the motivation of the groundskeeper.
Well,
she knows
the
what's going
motivation is that she knows what's going on. She has no control over what's going on. She's she's just a little old indigenous groundskeeper to the island.
But she knows what the venom does as an anti-poison.
Right, and she wants the women to save themselves.
But why does she wait? That's my question. Why the wait?
Why doesn't she just jam it down their throats? Is that what you mean? Or
spike their drinks, or why does she wait until our main character stumbles upon her, Naomi Ackie? Because it's like she's like snooping around, and she opens the door, and there's the groundskeeper.
Right, and then the groundskeeper hands her some venom to drink.
Exactly. It's one of these things where, like, in the moment it didn't bother me. Upon reflecting, I'm like, whoa, this doesn't quite make sense.
Maybe she didn't know all that. Maybe she didn't know that the venom makes you regain your memory. Maybe it's just like a cultural thing.
You're right.
And maybe she doesn't know what happens after hours. Like, they never show the groundskeeper knowing. The groundskeeper's never around when the worst is happening.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe she doesn't necessarily know what happens at night. And she was just giving her a little nip off the old drink.
little snake venom to get you going in the morning.
Right.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah. So for me, this movie really started to take off once Naomi Ackie and the other woman who played, like she was on like a Survivor style TV show. They start drinking the venom together. They start remembering, and then they're like, oh, we need to do something. And that's kind of when the movie kind of clicks into action, of becoming less of a mystery and more of a revenge thriller. Where even though these women now have their memory, they're still outnumbered on an island with a large group of men. So it's, like, well, how do we get our revenge? Because they still have lots of disadvantages.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting in that way. I think you're right. It's from a storytelling perspective, it's more Get Out than anything.
Yes, about sort of people being controlled and losing control of themselves and their memories and their actions.
Right. The difference being, like, in this one, they're not conscious of the worst of anything, whereas in Get Out, they're very conscious of what's happening, even though they're stuck inside their own bodies.
Yeah. Like, in Get Out, the horror is the mistreatment of Black people, in the sense of, like, how they're made to witness these atrocities from afar, right? It's very allegorical. It's like, this is going to happen to you and you can do nothing about it. And just, accept it. Where in this movie, right, it's just the whole, this also reminded me of Don't Worry, Darling. That's the other movie.
How so?
Well, so in that, this is spoiler for Don't Worry, Darling. People haven't seen that one. Right, in that one, like, Florence Pugh, she seems to live in this idealistic 60s community. Something's not right. And then you learn that she actually lives in the present era, but her husband, her boyfriend, whatever, has essentially is keeping her as a zombie in this virtual reality. Right, so she has no agency at all outside of this
community.
I don't know, the simulation that she's living in. And she's being kept, her actual body's being kept as a slave.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
whereas the men can come and go from the simulation as they choose.
I understand. The themes are similar. Execution's a little different, but the themes are similar.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Although in Don't Worry, Darling, people weren't being, assaulted nightly.
I mean, I think in Don't Worry, Darling, it's more of like the assault is these women have no agency, right? They have no choice. They're living in this simulation. They think everything's utopic. The men are obviously, there's a lot of sex happening in this simulation, and I don't remember exactly.
But at least
if they're
it's
being
like
drugged.
This is what. Okay.
Just
Don't worry,
trying
darling.
Okay.
I was about to say it's consensual, but it's not because they're being tricked.
It's not, right, exactly.
But it's not violent. And again, that doesn't excuse it. It's still a trick. Right. I'm just saying it's a different level.
Yeah. I mean, I would say thematically they're similar. Maybe the specificities are different.
Absolutely.
But thematically, the idea of, men abusing their power and taking advantage of women.
Right. So to be clear, in Blink Twice, if you haven't seen it, the twist is the women on the island who are kind of into the idea of being on the island because they're partying with all these rich guys.
Right. Yep.
Every night they're being assaulted, and then every night they lose the memory of what happened to them. And the next morning they just feel great because all they remember is really that they had a fun time partying.
Yep.
They don't remember the bad parts of the partying. And so, and they don't know how long they've even been on the island because that part of their memory is gone.
Right. There's no phones.
Right.
It seems to be an endless party. Every day is the same. They all have matching outfits.
Exactly.
Yep.
So then one of our two main characters gets bit by the snake. They know that now that she's bit by the snake, the potion will no longer work on her. And so they kill her.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Aaliyah Shawkat character. And then the Naomi something
Aki.
or other character, Aki character, who is her friend, also goes to sleep, has drinking the potion from the groundskeeper lady, has drinking the venom, snake venom. And so she wakes up without memory of a bad thing happening to her, just a memory that she was there with her friend and her friend's now gone. And everybody around her is pretending like she was never there.
Well, I think the women aren't pretending. The women do not remember that
Right.
she wasn't there.
The women don't remember.
The men are obviously pretending.
Right. The men are pretending. And so she starts to unravel these things because she's like, I'm not crazy. I know she was here type of thing.
Right.
And she figures out roughly what's going on and then is trying to figure out, since they're on an island, she's trying to figure out how to get out of here and save these other women from this horrible fate without being killed by these psychopaths who are clearly on a power trip. And then an element that we didn't really dive into with Channing Tatum's character that I think we should talk about now is that he's a billionaire that was canceled at one point.
Right. We never know exactly what, but there is, talks of abuse of power and, a toxic workplace.
Exactly.
And, he does the whole circuit of, I'm sorry, and I'm opening up a fund to fund domestic abuse or whatever, things like that. So he's very performative in his post allegations life.
Yeah, and he stepped down as CEO from his company,
right,
and became chairman of the board or something like that.
And started his nonprofit or whatever. Yeah,
right. And so everybody just kind of assumes that he's this reformed guy on some level. He's definitely, from a public-facing perspective, just a different person than when he was a party guy that had all these issues. And so she likes him. Right, the character played by Naomi, Frida, she likes him and believes that he's a different person than what he was, before he got canceled.
Right.
And so he also, the potion, I'm sure, is doing its magic, but also he's just putting on this face that he's reformed,
a good guy.
When in reality, the only lesson he learned is that it's better to forget traumatic things. You know what I mean? I think he has he's a psychopath, clearly, R-wordist psychopath. But there was also a little bit of like tech bro billionaire mixed in there, where he's just kind of like on this weird power trip of like, wouldn't it be better to just disrupt memory? You know what I mean? And like,
yeah, like
forget
I
all
can
your
help,
traumatic events.
right? Like this will be help people if they can forget.
Right.
And there's some allusions to the fact that he probably was abused as a kid, right? Because he talks about he can't remember anything before the age of 10. During his big monologue, which you mentioned, you know, he says something about like his sister being like, how can you spend time with that guy after what he did to us? Since we're on the top of that monologue, him just shouting, I'm sorry for like a
3
minute.
minutes.
It felt like a minute. I'm not sure how long it was, but
I mean, he probably said I'm sorry in like, would you say at least 25 different variations on the word I'm sorry?
oh yeah, it starts off sincere and then sad and then angry, and you know, again, it's you're trying to like, is this him just like saying I'm sorry? Is this him saying like no one cares if you're sorry or not? Like if any time I felt a little sympathy for the character, it was during that monologue, not because he's a good person,
Right.
but I think that monologue showed depth to him, and like you could see him as a person, even though he's mostly a monster. Like and that I guess maybe he had a little humanity in that monologue.
Right. And I think I think that monologue is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the core of the movie, especially the ending, and whether you buy the motivation, his specific motivation to be on this island, invite all his friends, come up with this scheme to like make women forget, you know, the awfulness of the last couple hours, basically. Yeah, like why would somebody do that, go to those lengths? Not sure it gives you details of exactly why he did it, but I thought it was interesting that like I think some of these canceled people want to just say sorry and have people believe them, right?
Right. Yep.
And they're in a situation, some of them, not all of them, are in a situation where sorry is just not going to cut it. We don't like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're a scumbag. There's nothing you can do that will change what you've done in the past. You might not be in jail, but we're not interested in you anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I felt like those repeating I'm sorry over and over in all those different variations was like a guy who had power and respect, who at one point lost it, and he doesn't know how to get it back. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so he's just trying every version of I'm sorry. And even at the end, he says, did any of those satisfy, you know, the need to hear I'm sorry? You know what I mean? Like he's just hasn't figured it out yet. And so it's, I'm not sure how that weaves in with the themes of like drugging women and having your way and having them forget and feeling like, I don't know, you're white knighting in a way by having them forget what you just inflicted on them. There was a little bit of a weird power trip that way too. But I just never thought of it from that perspective, I would say. I've never seen a movie that like made somebody who was canceled the bad guy, but also gave you some perspective on the idea that like being canceled alone would just totally screw with your mind if you were that person. Deservedly, especially in this case.
Yes.
But what that might do to like a psyche to go from like the height to completely lost respect from, you know, the planet at large.
and we can glean that this whole terrible scheme started after he was canceled, right? Because don't they say,
oh yeah,
there's kind of like a news thing is like, you know, disgraced billionaire buys island. There's definitely there's a little bit of a Jeffrey Epstein thing going on too. Like you get the impression that lots of powerful people come to this island to have their way with women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely a commentary on how powerful men commodify female bodies.
Yeah, and he was like known for these wild parties, maybe not necessarily on the island, but known for the wild parties. But now he's like the namaste guy that only eats vegetarian, and I don't remember if they said that, but like
right. Like everything's grown natural on the island. Yeah, he's trying to come off as like this peaceful guru. Like I've learned and I've grown, and I've become a better person after this experience. And really, he's just a worse version of himself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, like he's figured out how to self-justify his bad deeds in like a whole new way.
Right. Yeah.
Basically.
So,
okay.
But there's a second. Okay. So I guess if we could, maybe I said this already. If we back up a little bit, the part that felt like it would have been more of a thud to me was when the women first realized they're being poisoned, and they realize that Naomi Aki and the other woman realized like, oh, there was Aaliyah Shawkat was here. And like it starts as a mystery, and I was like, should this be hitting harder? Because this doesn't feel like it's hitting hard. And then you get the reveal that they're being assaulted every night, and that hit. I'm like, okay, maybe this is where it's supposed to hit now.
Yeah, I think your memory comes back over time. Like things trigger the memory.
Yes.
So you're like, even though you've drank the snake venom, it takes a bit for something to trigger the memory, and then it all comes flooding back, type of thing.
Yep.
I liked that kind of slower drip of the reveal. Like clearly as an audience member, we know Aaliyah Shawkat was there, so we're just kind of waiting for the characters to catch up.
Right.
Even though we don't know that it actually goes way deeper than just her disappearing at that moment.
Yes, I mean? Right. At first, it feels like, oh, she's disappeared. That's the mystery.
Why would they do that?
Yeah,
that's the question, and then you find out why.
And it's much more sinister,
for sure.
There's a third twist, though. I would say there's another twist to this movie.
Okay,
and that is we learn that Naomi Aki had been on this island before,
a year earlier.
Right, that's part of the groundskeeper. We don't realize this. The creepy groundskeeper recognizes her. And that's why she keeps and maybe that's why the groundskeeper gives her the venom.
And we should like, say the groundskeeper doesn't speak English, so it's hard for them to communicate. That's
very true. Yeah, she keeps calling her what sounds like red rabbits, but I wasn't quite sure. I think maybe that's a flaw in the movie. It was maybe a little too muddled because you're like, well, what is she calling her? Or run rabbits? I wasn't quite sure what it was.
Sure.
Anyway, it recognizes her from like some nail art from a year ago. So yeah, so Naomi Aki realizes, oh, I've been on this island before. This has happened to me before. And then she comes up with her true revenge plan, which isn't let's kill all the men. She starts to put the forget me poison in Channing Tatum's vape pen, and essentially then turns him into her slave.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the movie, it's like a year later. Now she runs the company. She's married to Channing Tatum. She has all the power. And he's sort of the drugged out, forgetful guy who, can't remember people he met earlier in the movie. And I'm sure at this point, just probably says yes to everything.
Right. Yeah. And she's nice to him. And so she just kind of like tells him what to do.
Exactly.
And he does it.
Right. So, instead of it being like, I want the revenge of, I want to kill the people who did this to me. The revenge is I want to do to him what he did to me.
Right. Which is interesting for sure. Like I clearly not in the same situation. But I can't imagine it would be fun to have all that power and live in a relationship with this guy that did these awful things to you. Like it feels like, yes, there's revenge in that for sure.
Right.
But it doesn't feel like a great existence, even with all the money in the world.
Yeah.
Like maybe just like kill him or send him away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something, and then enjoy all his money. Or I don't know. It just felt I don't know. A little weird. The ending was strange, but I liked it.
I liked it.
It was dark, but it was, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a stinger seed. It's a coda to the movie, right? So you don't know the full workings of it. For all I know, he's constantly drugged and she can just do whatever she wants and has to just check in with him once a day. Like we don't know how far it goes, or, you know, I imagine that, you know, how this drug works is she probably doesn't have to do a lot she doesn't want to do with him, besides being around him. Like that's probably the, you know, the hardest part. But if she can stomach that with the power, then that's the trade-off, I guess.
Absolutely. Maybe we should have
ruin
done
his life for his benefit, her benefit.
Maybe we should have done female revenge movies for our list, because
I think I suggest
done that?
We maybe have done female revenge movies before. That seems like a familiar list we've done.
Sure. Have you ever seen Revenge?
I have not seen Revenge.
From 2017? That was good too.
Okay.
Revenge was good. Nightingale, that was good. That's from the Babadook director.
Yeah, I want to see it, but you trigger warned me about some pretty intense violence in that movie.
At the beginning of the movie is brutal.
Yep.
But it's a revenge movie, so it's like setting up for why she would do what she does later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it makes sense, but it's it's brutal at the beginning. Revenge has this great scene in this house in the middle of the desert that has like 360 windows all the way around the house, because it's in the middle of the desert. You have no neighbors basically. And at one point this guy is chasing this woman around the house. So he's trying to get her and kill her basically. And they just keep like swirling the camera around the house as you see them chasing each other and like getting one up on each other around the house. It was great. Anyway,
interesting. Yeah.
There's another moment in Blink Twice that I really loved, and it was the time bomb element of the two stoner girls that they're waiting for them to wake up. Like they've given them the juice.
Yep.
They've given them the snake venom. The two girls who were already awoken have given the two stoner girls the snake juice, and they know it's only a matter of time before they remember all the horrible things these men have done to them, and they just know that when that happens, this is going to pop off.
Right. And that's probably when this movie, if this movie was ever fun, I'm using quotation marks.
Sure.
That was probably the moment this movie was maybe fun, was when these two women.
You're just anticipating them.
Right.
Yeah. Getting their revenge.
Also, one of them's like, "What did you do to me?" And then they go off, and it's still pretty dark. It's not like, you know, there's not fun music playing and it's not a comedy or anything. It's still dark, and things don't end well for everyone. Well, we can just spoiler zone. Like they still get killed, but
right. And at that point, in pretty grisly fashion.
Right. But there is that anticipation of they're going to remember, and then things are really going to turn.
Yeah. It was interesting too that I thought they were going to play it like Gina Davis knew all along, but they played it like she also had lost her memory.
Yes, but to her is by choice. Right? Because she said, "I wanted to forget." Like,
oh, right. At one point she took it by choice. But once you start the snowball, like, you know.
Yeah. And I do wonder, so like Gina Davis kind of plays the assistant to Channing Tatum. And I do wonder what her relationship with him is. And, you know, when she and the other girls get tricked into drinking the poison. You know, Naomi Ackie and the other woman, that they kind of spike some tequila, give them all tequila shots to get it going. So I'm curious to know kind of what Gina Davis's history is with Channing Tatum.
Right. If she knows what happens every night and she voluntarily loses her memory. But at the same time, she didn't know that the snake venom would give her memory back.
She didn't know that she was drinking snake venom, though.
It
was in tequila shots.
You're right.
Yeah. So like I saw Gina Davis, or maybe her character was not quite fleshed out. I kind of saw her as a collaborator. You know, so she was kind of like the you know,
Giselle, whatever her name is, Giselle.
Yes. Yeah. From Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
Where she at least at one point knew what was going on.
And chose to kind of look the other way.
Exactly. And then chose to forget.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets killed too, but in this case, you feel like she deserves it because she's just as guilty as they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I liked it. Have you ever seen like I Spit on Your Grave or any of like the classic? No. Okay.
I really want to know if we've done this list.
I think maybe we've done revenge movies. I just don't know if we've done.
We've done female revenge because I feel like
If we did, it was with Promising Young Woman, right?
It would have
Probably.
to have been. I don't know what else we would have.
Right.
Yeah. Look at the Promising Young Woman episode. See if we did revenge movies with that one. I think we just did flat revenge, not female revenge.
Top 10 female-led revenge movies.
Oh, okay. What here? Since unless you want to do this really quickly, read what were my top 10?
What do you think were in your top 10? Just list off some movies. I'll tell you if it was in your top 10.
I'm assuming Kill Bill was in there.
That was your number 1.
Okay. I'm assuming Promising Young Woman was in there.
Number 2.
Did I put Ex Machina in there?
No Ex Machina.
Okay. And I'm really terrible about just thinking movies off the top of my head. So you can tell me what the other 8 are.
All right. We got Mad Max Fury Road was your number 3.
Okay.
Not sure that's a revenge movie.
Yeah. Charlize Theron, she's getting revenge on a Morton Joe by stealing his brides and stealing his supplies.
I think it's more like she's fleeing him, not trying to get revenge on him. Like she took those women because she thought they should flee,
right?
Not because she's trying to hurt him.
But she gets revenge on him at the end, though. Like she's the one that kills the Morton Joe.
Sure, I agree. But whatever.
God, this is reminding me of Furiosa, and I want to watch a movie again, but I think I'm going to be disappointed again
with Furiosa.
Yeah, because I really felt like Furiosa should have been a wife who was subjugated to the horrors of Morton Joe, was able to somehow raise up and become right. But in this case, what we get in Furiosa is, I mean, she gets stolen. But
sure.
I don't know. I never felt like her hatred for Morton Joe would have gone beyond just like, oh, I don't like this guy.
Some things don't need a prequel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
It kind of ruins it.
It kind of ruins it. Yeah.
Kind of ruins it. Even though Furiosa was a perfectly fine action movie.
It's more fun. It's not more fun. It's more interesting to think of why does she hate Morton Joe so much?
Sure.
Yeah.
Number 4, Inglourious Bastards.
Oh yeah, because not Marie Cotillard, what her name is, the French actress.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, she burns down the theater.
Right.
Shoshana is her character's name.
Your number 5 was Carrie, the original.
Yep. Okay.
Your number 6, Leon Colin, the Professional.
Oh, because Natalie Portman's family is killed. Yes, Natalie Portman's family is killed. That's why she wants to learn how to become a hitman.
Right.
Yep.
Diabolique.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I watched it. That's the one with the pool, right?
Yes. It's a French Hitchcock style movie with the pool. Exactly.
Right. Gone Girl is your number 8.
Yep. Okay.
True Grit from 2010.
Okay.
I don't remember the revenge element in that, but I need to rewatch it. I've only seen it the once.
I remember it's Haley Steinfeld hires Rooster Cogburn for a reason. I can't remember what the exact reason is. Yeah.
And then Widows, which is a great movie. I love.
Widows. Yeah, that's a good movie.
Widows has that long car ride shot in it. It's so good.
From the van.
Yeah.
The shootout from the van. Yes.
I'm pretty sure that was Widows, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
The one where they drive for several blocks and the camera is just sitting on the hood of the car.
Widows has 2 long shots.
Right.
See, yeah, right. One is the 2 characters get in a car in one part of town.
They drive from the nice part of town to the bad part of town.
Exactly. And it's a single take. And you as they're talking, you see the background scenery just kind of change from the nice to bad.
Well, it's on the hood and you're seeing glare from the windshield.
Sure, maybe that's
you can't actually see the people having the conversation because they're in the car.
That's okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the other long one, it's not quite as long, but I think it's in the opening. There's a shootout, and our characters are in the back of a van, like a panel van, and the door is open. And we just are basically like looking at them sort of from behind their heads out the door as they're shooting out the door while people are shooting into it.
Interesting.
And I thought that was a really like POV shot of like, okay, this would be like to be in a van during a shootout. Not great.
I got to watch Widows again.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Sounds awesome. My list, I had The Nightingale as my number one.
Yep.
Revenge. These are going to be all movies I already brought up today.
Right.
Carrie.
Okay.
Promising Young Woman.
Okay.
Kill Bill. Jennifer's Body. That's a new one we didn't talk about. That's a comedy revenge movie. Female-led revenge movie. L, which was good.
Okay.
L was good. A Vigilante from 2019. I don't even remember that movie. I got to look it up. Evidently, I like it a lot. Diabolique, which you had me watch, and The Quick and the Dead from 1995. And let's hit Zach's since he's not here to defend himself.
He's not here. I'm just curious to see what he has to say. Yeah.
He said Dogville, which I've never seen.
That's Lars Van Trier, Nicole Kidman. I've never seen it.
Yeah, you're never going to see it, are you?
I've never seen a Lars Van Trier film.
Really?
Yeah.
You're trying to keep it that way?
No, I want to watch Melancholia.
Okay. That's probably the safest one to watch.
Yeah, that's the only one I'm really interested in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not. The rest of them I'm not interested in. Even Dogville I'm not interested in, but I'll watch Melancholia.
No Antichrist for you?
No Antichrist, no Nymphomaniac, none of that.
Sure. I never seen Nymphomaniac either.
Yeah, no.
I would watch Nymphomaniac if it was one movie. It's like 4 hours long. I'm just not interested.
It's 2 parts and
yeah.
Yeah.
His number 3, Gone Girl. 4, Carrie. 5, Hard Candy. Another movie I haven't seen, but probably should have seen by now.
Yeah, Elliot Page.
Yeah. Promising Young Woman. 9 to 5. Which is a comedy.
Oh, the Dolly Parton movie?
I've never seen that. Have you seen 9 to 5?
I haven't. I don't think they're getting revenge like in the violent way. I'm sure they're getting revenge on like male bosses or something like that.
I mean, revenge is revenge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the list. Kill Bill 1 and 2 and Fried Green Tomatoes.
Oh, I've seen Fried Green Tomatoes. I remember the revenge part of it, but
you don't?
I don't remember it. No, I saw Fried Green Tomatoes in college so long ago.
Remember they make a pie out of something?
That's The Help. Do they do
I
that in
think
Fried
that
Green
happens
Tomatoes
in
also?
Fried Green Tomatoes.
Oh, they do?
Well.
Okay.
I don't know. Am I confusing movies?
Because The Help definitely, they make a doo-doo pie.
Fried Green Tomatoes pie. Yeah, where was the revenge in Fried Green Tomatoes?
Yeah, I don't remember. That's why I didn't think about. I always thought about just a movie about the bond of women.
Fried Green Tomatoes. Ooh. Okay. Maybe we'll talk about this in the after show.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
We'll try to figure out
like,
where the revenge is in Fried Green Tomatoes. In the
sounds like
show.
great after show comments commentary.
Anything else with Don't Blink spoilers that we got to talk about?
No. We talk about Kyle MacLachlan at all?
I mean, I don't even know why he's in this movie. It could have been anybody, but like it's Kyle MacLachlan.
Right, exactly. Like, oh, look, he's in this movie. Yeah.
Right. And like of the horrible things that happen in the back half of this movie, he's guilty for being there, but they don't show him actually do anything.
Well, he is on the island for a bit, isn't he? And then he leaves.
Right. And then like they show him being around when the other guys are doing awful things. And he's like, so you're telling me they just forget it? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like it's like he's learning what the system is that they have going on the island or something like that. Not excusing him. I'm just saying he doesn't have a big part in the movie. He's just kind of there. And it was interesting because I mean, it's pretty random.
It's an interesting cast of characters.
Yeah. I mean, the people in this movie, specifically the men they cast in this movie, was such a motley crew. of actors.
Yeah,
I just
guy
never
who-
expected all of these people to be in the same movie.
The guy who played the chef, he looked familiar, but I couldn't really place him from anything.
That's Simon Rex, who one used to be a rapper, and two was in that movie called Red Rocket from Sean Baker from a couple years ago. So
I've never seen Red Rocket.
Oh,
Simon
really?
Rex.
You should watch that. He's good in it.
Okay.
And that's a
I've
good
seen him in
movie.
other things, I swear.
Yeah, Sean Baker, the director of Florida Project.
Yep.
Who was his follow-up to Florida Project. Simon Rex is like the main guy at Red Rocket. Yeah, I don't think I could get you guys to watch that the year it came out. So we didn't really talk about it much, but I like that movie.
Do you know where I know him from?
What?
The Scary Movie series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay. I think he kind of was like doing that comedy circuit in the 2000s.
Yeah, he was never
Yeah.
like a super famous guy.
No, but I'd say he has a memorable face though.
And he's been kind of in the Hollywood scene, the LA
Yep.
scene for decades, I would say, but never fully broke out. Okay. That's it for Blink Twice. If you've seen the movie, let us know what you thought about it, either via email, heyguys@cinereelists.com, or leave us a comment wherever you're watching this. Thanks for watching or listening. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.